Yeah. Hi, Avi. It's a rare special appearance by Avi Hall.
Say hi, world. I'm ready for my debut.
Hi, Avi.
He's like, well,
So cute.
I mean,
Avi, do you get a haircut ever?
not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Yet it's getting long. We cut off her mother cut off like a couple pieces of it to preserve it. She had this like crazy haircut for a good 2 months.
Hey,
Yeah.
Avi, I highly recommend a swoop. What you do is you just swoop it all over.
You want to try the swoop? Try a swoop.
Elvis invented it. And Elvis was born where, Ellie?
Memphis.
Mississippi. I was going to say Gary, Indiana.
Where was Elvis born? He's like, she's like, I don't know trivia. I know 2 things: food and filling my diaper. You know about snow. That is true. It is snowing.
Very good snowy spring morning here in Pittsburgh. For those of you who aren't in Pittsburgh, I want to show you. Oh, but we have Avi. We have Avi Hall. First of all, let's spotlight Avi Hall because it's rare that we get Avi here with us. Good morning, Avi.
Ooh, a big smile for everybody. Say
hi, Avi.
Good morning.
Avi, how old are you?
Say, I am almost 16 months.
So you're 1.
Yeah.
You're 1.
1 1/4 almost already.
1 1/4. Well, wonderful. She's at the age where she can enjoy some veteran stories, I think.
So he said, hey, sure, why not?
Oh, very good. Thank you for joining us, Avi. Such a cutie. I am a little traumatized by what's happening outside here in Pittsburgh, and I just want to show you. This is somewhat near my house. Here, yesterday was a nice, spring day. You could see people golfing on this golf course, and then, of course, nighttime comes and it gets dark, and then the sun comes up, and it is snow. And oh my gosh, there we go. So, yeah, it was not a fun thing to wake up to. How are you all doing?
Wonderful. I'm going to change my name from Todd again.
Yeah, don't impersonate me. Boy, we had a wonderful program last night on 30 Seconds Over Tokyo and the Doolittle Raid. I thought that was really interesting, and it was especially great having Ben Wright and Larry Guggens as pilots there to tell us a little bit about what the piloting involved. I wanted to start today with hey, Larry.
Can I just mention something? I told my wife about the conversation last night, and she'll come up here, but she's still, she met the last Doolittle Raider down in Texas when American Airlines had their annual veterans program. She was there and met him, and they had the goblets there, and I think he had the last goblet. I'll let her tell you about. I didn't know. I forgot all about that, but she actually was able to meet. I can't remember which one it was. You guys know. Who was the last one to live? I think he was the last one alive.
Dick Cole.
Yeah, she met him down there, so she's downstairs right now, but I'll have her come up real quick and tell you just very briefly about meeting him. So, yeah, small world, isn't it? So,
oh, that's so neat.
That was so much fun. I've said this before. Everybody here knows this. Each one of these are fun. I keep thinking that was the best one. You guys are amazing, both you and Sean and Ellie. So anyway, I'll be quiet for a minute. She's actually downstairs making breakfast because it's breakfast club. You guys should all be eating breakfast now.
Right.
I'm not sharing my omelet with you. Anyway, thanks, Sean.
All right. Yeah, that was so fascinating. Dick Cole was the last of the Doolittle Raiders. I think he died last year at 102, I think it was. And very, healthy and with it right to the very end. But I thought, Ren, yes. Hey,
Hey.
Ren.
I met a couple of guys, old guys, and they knew to some extent Doolittle, and they had a picture of him and them standing together, and they gave me a picture of that, my own picture.
Oh, how neat.
So I don't know where it's at, but I do have that. I thought that was pretty special.
It reminds me, hearing about Dick Cole being 102 years old, reminds me that George Slook sent me this military.com article on this man who he just celebrated his 107th birthday. He was a pilot, a Navy pilot, shot down 3 days after Pearl Harbor, and then would go on to be in a lot of combat after that. So he is very with it. And so I've contacted his stepson, and I'm hoping to get him on our program. Julia, he has you beat 107. You've got a ways to go, Julia. Oh man, fascinating. Hey, Ron Gianta, how are you? Good to see you.
Thank you. Glad to be here today. It's the Doolittle story, the story of the Raiders over Tokyo. That's one of my favorite stories. And I just can't keep forgetting about the display at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base at the museum of all of the goblets for all of the Raiders. And every time a Raider passed away, they turned it upside down. And there was a bottle of cognac that Doolittle bought. And when there was 2 Raiders left, they were on the anniversary, they were supposed to open that bottle of cognac, drink a toast to all the Raiders, and then turn their cups upside down. And I think it was I remember reading a story that there was 2 Raiders left, and I think the year was 2013. And one of the Raiders sent an email to the other one saying that he was sick with cancer, and he was sorry he wasn't going to make it. And this one single Raider, I think he opened a bottle and he did the toast himself. But like even here in our neighborhood in Summer Seat, I was so inspired with that whole thing about drinking a toast on an annual basis that here in our little community at Summer Seat, Traditions of America, Ohio Township, we have a group of veterans here, Vietnam veterans, different, Afghanistan, whatever, like all services. And what we do on Veterans Day is we do a thing with the changing of the flags, raising and lowering. You have a little ceremony for Veterans Day. And then whenever we're done, we go into the bar, which is our clubhouse. And I have a bottle of Crown Royal that my father purchased at a Class 6 store in 1957. And on the back of the bottle is a label that says, "For armed forces use only." And I also have a bottle of Hagen Haig Pinch Scotch, where on the front of the bottle, it has "For U.S. Air Force." I mean, these were bottles of liquor my father purchased at a real Class 6 liquor store. And all the veterans will go into the bar and we'll all line up a shot glass. And everybody pours a drink, and we sit there and we toast to all of our veterans that we know today, the veterans we've lost, or what have you, in a very quiet toast in our minds. And to all the veterans here in the neighborhood, it's kind of a meaningful event.
Oh, it's wonderful. What a wonderful thing to do. Yeah, toast each other. Any news you want to share with us from the VA?
Well, okay, on the COVID-19 shots, and I think I sent you a message last week that they're giving all veterans, last day of clinic last Saturday, where they're giving all veterans, whether you are registered with the VA or not registered with the VA, your spouses or if you have a caregiver who's taking care of you, they were all getting COVID-19 vaccinations. They were using the Pfizer vaccination at University Drive, and they're still continuing that. And we're trying to spread the word out to as many people as we humanly can. So all of our veterans, whether they're registered or not registered, or their spouses, or if they're housebound and somebody has to take care of them, or maybe they're not housebound, but somebody still comes in to help them with their daily activities, that they're getting a vaccination too.
Right.
So that we're just making sure that our whole veteran community is taken care of.
Right.
Erie, by appointment, they're doing the same thing. The Butler VA Hospital is doing the same thing. So all of the hospitals in our particular area of Western Pennsylvania are all working very hard to make sure that all the veterans are taken care of.
That's great. That's great. Okay. So any veteran or family member or caregiver who hasn't been vaccinated yet absolutely should be and can be.
Also, dependents under the age of 18 too.
All right.
So some of these veterans still have kids at home,
Yeah.
or college students. And lastly, our public contact center in the federal building on the 17th floor has been open. We're there 5 days a week from 8 o'clock in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon. If a veteran wants to come in and meet with one of us and review a claim, review their file, get a benefit summary letter, some of them need benefit summary letters for housing issues, or a copy of their DD Form 214 or anything, we're there to help our veterans.
Excellent. Thank you, Ron. Thank you very much. And thank you for coming this morning and sharing that information. Barbara Googans, good morning. Thank you for joining us. You met, I think it was probably Dick Cole that you met, right?
It is. Our American Airlines that I work for, every year we put on a veterans big ordeal at the hangars in Dallas, and they honored him as the last Doolittle, and he spoke. And I served him and his family, and it was wonderful to meet him. And forgive me, I can't remember the cognac that they drank or the Hennessy. Whoever bottled that, the family that owns that was also there, and they provided it for every table. We had about 1,000 people for dinner, and it was amazing to meet him. And so many people came up, and he signed the bottles for them all. And they brought the glass. They would pass it around. They had that little traveling case of the glassware with the bottle in it, and he poured from that and drank out of the glass. We had a toast.
And when was that, Barbara?
It was the year before he died.
Okay.
So it was great to hear his story, and I called Larry right away. I was like, "Wait till you hear the story." So it was wonderful.
I think that might have been 2013. I think it was a while.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Yes.
Oh, that's so neat. That is so neat. Yeah. Anybody else have a Doolittle Raider story? I want to welcome and introduce, before we get to Rick Pahler. Rick, I have these great tapes, Rick, Vietnam veteran, I want to share and have him comment on. But I see Deborah Benura is with us. Hi, Deborah. I just want to welcome you to our programs. I know that you were on, I think, last week with us, and I just wanted to welcome you. And if you wanted to introduce yourself, or say if you're a veteran, or if you're from a military family, or what your interest is in these stories.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. No, thank you. Yeah, I'm a veteran. I served in the 80s. I went into the service. Well, I'll date myself. I was 30 years old. I was a broadcaster in the service. My my job was to interview servicemen and women around the world, interacting with other countries, and be aired commercially in the United States.
What a cool job.
You would love it. So this is why And this is why I'm so interested in what you're doing, telling stories, because that was my whole job, to put them on air in their hometowns in the United States. So I had a wonderful, wonderful assignment. And I have still many of those interviews in my possession. I interviewed thousands of them while I served. So it was fabulous, fabulous. Fabulous assignment. And now I'm retired, live in Plumboro, and I just started a Plum Veterans Facebook page and group, and we're just growing. And I share a lot of what you guys do on our page, and I'm just trying to get them all involved and try to give back in this way. We've got 21 members, and we're just trying to get growing. And I just found you guys recently, so I'm interested in all the stories and what you're doing. And I actually have an interview at 10 o'clock with one of my members. So that's what I do.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Yeah. And boy, and I would love to hear more. What branch of service were you in?
I served in the U.S. Army. I was stationed at an Air Force base. I was stationed at Kelly, but I was gone traveling most of the time, of course.
What a neat gig. I would love to hear more. And if you have a picture of yourself in the Army, you know how we love to share that. And I'd love to talk with you more about that. And also, do we have your contact information? Do I have your email? Do you get our emails?
I got an email to join on Zoom this week. So
okay, good.
You got it. Yeah. Good. So nice to meet you all and listen in.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining us. And then also I want to welcome Ron Saitjin. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Ron, I think you're a Vietnam veteran. I know you've joined us before. And I don't know if you could unmute yourself and want to just say hello. How are you?
Hello. We're still dealing with breakfast here. Let me get our video on here.
Well, you don't have to.
Club, right?
This is the Breakfast Club, but I have you're out west somewhere, aren't you?
In Colorado.
So it's like early in Colorado.
It is 2 hours earlier.
Okay.
Yep, 7
2 hours early. And you're a Vietnam veteran?
I am. Air Force, Vietnam era, of course, and was in reconnaissance in the RF-4. I was a backseater in the RF-4. Reconnaissance out of Udorn, 71, 72, and was flight instructor, Shaw Air Force Base. I was at Mountain Home, Idaho. That's pretty much it. I finished up, got out in 74 after 6.5 years from Shaw Air Force Base.
Explain to people, I see Larry wants to chime in, and feel free, Larry. Explain to people what a backseater is in a F4.
Well, in photo reconnaissance, it was turning on and off the cameras and doing the navigation to the targets. And one time led some fighters in because I guess they trusted our navigation and brought them over to the target area and told them when to drop their bombs.
So were you there for linebacker?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Do you have any memories from that? Would have been June 1972, I think, right?
Well, one thing I've noticed is I don't have nearly the memories that all you guys have. So not too many stories. We did, they didn't have all the weather recon that we have today, or weather reporting. So we'd go out early in the morning, and I was in a program called Bullwhip. It was a bullwhip in Atlanta, if anyone remembers those. So we were kind of VFR and low-level reconnaissance, visual and photographic. So we had side-looking radar, infrared, front-looking radar and cameras. And we bring them back, and they download them, and we debrief, and that was our mission.
So it was mainly reconnaissance of the Ho Chi Minh Trail?
I would say mostly in North Vietnam, different target areas. Our wingman was shot down over Dong Hoi. Backseater was recovered after 5 days in the jungle. So we were happy about that. And The pilot was taken prisoner, but released after 8 months on a diplomatic trade of some sort. I don't even know all the details of it, but we got them both back.
Ron, hey, Jeff Witherell.
Excuse me, I was just going to ask Ron a question. What was it like, being in the last part of the war? What went through your mind with the fact that, okay, we were pulling out of there, and they were having the peace talks going on, and we finally got out of there in '73, and I just wondered what it was like being at the end of that era.
Well, there's still another 3 years to go, so it was still the height of the air war, even though the ground war was simmering down. So, I was one of those people that kind of just did his job and didn't pay too much attention to the other stuff.
And Larry, were you at Udon or Ubon? I could always get those confused.
Yeah, no. Ron, first of all, welcome home. Another
Thank you.
Vietnam veteran. I was stationed at Korat in 1970, and I was also, here's a new word for you, Todd, gib. Ron knows what a gib is. I was a
Going
gib
back.
in the F4E at Korat in 1970. I did a couple of times escort the RF-4s through North Vietnam. Todd and Ron can tell you about it, but they would fly low level, and we used to call it at the speed of stink, but they would fly, real fast. We had ordnance on the aircraft, so we had to fly at altitude, just keep up with the RF-4s. If you don't have a picture of the RF-4, it's a nice looking, a better looking airplane than the F4E because of the sleek nose position where the cameras are. But Ron, thanks for what you have done. And I escorted them through North Vietnam a couple of times, but yeah, they were good. And man, did they fly fast at low altitude. Yeah, but anyway, Ron, thanks. Welcome home. And I was there in, like I said, 1970 at Korat.
Thank you. Good to meet you. Good to meet you all. Thanks for calling me out, Todd. I was a little bit shy, but wanted to hear all your stories. I think I'll be on every week.
Wonderful, Ron. Yeah, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I also want to make sure that you know that that you're welcome. Hey, who just shared that? Was that you, Sean? You were,
yeah.
Man, you and I found the exact same picture at the exact same time, and you were quicker on the draw than I was.
I was just trying to be faster than Ellie.
Yeah. Can you share that picture again? That is the F4. And I don't know if it's the RF4 or what configuration it is.
This says QF4.
QF4. Well, that looks like an airplane that would go fast. That's
It is a Mach 2 aircraft.
And look how the wings, look at those wings that are like gull winged. Why are the wings curved up like that?
Well, probably our airline pilots can tell you about that. And I think they're doing that more and more now.
Yeah.
To counteract the wingtip vortices and give you a little more lift.
Okay.
Yeah, the original F4, I think it was in, oh, wait a minute now, F110, I can't remember. It had straight wings and it didn't fly very well. And they went out of control and things like that and into spins. So somehow or another, McDonnell Douglas came up with putting the wings in, and that helped and worked. It was saying it was kind of an afterthought, and I don't know the whole story, but it's kind of crazy. Let's see.
Sean, I found the exact same picture.
That's a recon there.
That's it. That's an RF4 right there.
Yeah.
And it even had, can't even think of the word I'm now, shooting out the back tail for nighttime photography. Flares are, what's the right word for it?
I guess it's flares to illuminate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. It's like a flash bulb.
Yeah.
I didn't know flares were used to illuminate. I always thought they were meant as deterrents for incoming enemy fire.
Well, that was the downside of them, actually, because they showed your position. But
yeah, they were both. They had flares that would drop to light up things, but other aircraft. But what you're talking about is the defensive flares that would drop out of the back of the airplane to help the heat guided missiles from the ground, and they'd go after the flares because they were hotter than the engine.
Right.
And I should introduce my lady here, Deanne Olson. Her late husband was in the Navy, and so was her father in the was that the First World War?
Mhm.
He did deep sea diving with the big helmets on.
Deanne, nice to meet you. Your father was a deep sea diver in the Navy in World War I.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Did he ever talk
Her mother-
about it?
Well, a little bit. And my mother was Rosie the Riveter. She lived in Seattle, Washington. So we had a lot of military there. And
Oh,
then
that's-
as a kid, I always wanted to fly and be in the military, but instead I put a pair of skates on and I coach ice skating. So I fly on the ice instead of the air.
That's so great. Oh, that's so great. Thank you for joining us, Deanne and Ron. I appreciate it. This
Thank
is so
you.
much fun. And we have Harry Miller with us. Hello, Harry. He's if you were on Monday night, he shared his story joining the Army at age 15. He tried to join the Canadian Army at age 13, and his
Wow.
older sister talked him out of it. Good sister there. But before we get to Harry, I do want to get to Rick Pahler. Hello, Rick. How are you?
Oh, wow.
Good.
Is that all I get? Is a good?
Well, it's early in the morning.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you joining us, and I appreciate you having them over, Bill. And this is you is it 1967?
It's either 67 or 66, late 66.
And it's in Vietnam. And what is this? Treat, T-R-E-E-T?
That's like a spam.
It's a spam knockoff.
Yeah. That was a care package from my mother.
That was so.
You can see there's Campbell soup there, and I'm not sure what the rest of it is. Probably fruit cocktail. That was a real staple for me over there. I think I lived on fruit cocktail for a year, 11 months and 9 days.
How often would you get a care package from home?
Probably at least every couple of weeks, maybe. And there'd be everything in it that you would want, toothpaste. And at one point, we weren't getting any sundry packages. And I don't know if you know what sundry packages are or not, but
No.
basically it's all your basic necessities: toilet paper, toothpaste. I don't know what else is in there. Cigarettes,
Sewing kit.
yeah, all the normal stuff. And here what we found out was that for some reason or another, they were keeping it all in the rear area and we weren't getting anything. So one of the fellows in our platoon, he corresponded with his dad, who happened to be a writer for the New York Times, and explained to him that we weren't getting any of the regular stuff that we should be getting. So he had some influence and he called upon one of the generals, and next thing you know, there's a 2-star general out in the field asking us why we weren't getting, why we were unhappy with what we were getting. And everybody said, we're sitting around like a campfire. And basically we said, we're not getting any of that. And well, he raised hell. And next thing you know, we were getting it every week. And you were supposed to be getting either 2 cans of pop or 2 cans of beer a day. We weren't getting any of that. So that came to an end, and we started getting what we were supposed to get.
So my guess is somebody from the quartermasters or wherever in the rear was probably trading them or selling them
on the black market.
On the black market.
Yep.
Boy, that happens every war. Rick, were you drafted or did you volunteer?
Drafted. Yeah. I've got a U.S. number.
A U.S. Let's see.
I can't get anybody up again, so I don't know.
there was, I'm going to mute Harry here for a second. So there's US unwilling soldiers. And then the other was RA,
RA, yeah.
real Americans.
Well, I don't know about that.
I think that's what that
Regular Army.
regular army.
Yeah, that's my tape recorder there.
And this is a tape recorder. And so you obviously came from a devoted family. If you're getting, a care package every couple weeks, and you, a caring, loving, devoted family. And so you were sending them back reel to reel tapes,
right?
Kind of keeping them up to date on your life. Did you get a sense that your parents were worried about you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I have in my possession a box of letters that I wrote home that my mother kept. And there's all kind of interesting messages in there, if you will. And I spent about a day and a half, I guess, a while back going through the letters and just, rereading them and looking at what I had put down on paper, and how brown the paper turned out to be. And, it was if you can see the edge of the tape box on the top tape, how dark it is. Well, everything got like that. I mean, you could try like heck to keep things dry and neat and clean, but you couldn't. All the letters had smudge marks on them that went home, and you just did your best.
Between the dirt and the humidity, it just wreaked havoc on things like paper and cardboard. Did you find anything before I play the first snippet here of your recording? Did you find anything reading through the letters that kind of surprised you, or that you forgot about? Or
we had my mother and I, especially, not so much my dad, but I'm sure he got the messages too. But I had a picture of Vietnam and had a grid lined up crosswise and up and down and so forth. And whenever I wrote home, I would say I'm at position 3X or whatever the heck it was. And she would know roughly where I was at then. And it was all unofficial, of course, because we weren't supposed to be doing anything like that. And all the mail that we sent home, I don't know if any of the other fellows, I guess they knew about it too, but it was free. We didn't get charged any postage for sending letters or tapes home. Coming our direction, I'm sure they paid for that, but sending tapes home were free.
Now I'm looking at Harry. When Harry Miller was in the Army in Europe in 1944, 45, if he were to write home, it would have been censored. I mean, his commander would have read it. Did that happen in Vietnam also?
I don't believe so. Although there were some letters that I wrote when we were on a ship going over that I don't think my parents ever got.
So
I don't know what happened to those.
So you took a ship over to Vietnam?
Oh yeah, we went over as a division, the 4th Infantry Division, and there were 5,000 men on that ship, and it was like a sardine package. There were bunks on the ship. I got pictures I can show you, but I think there were 4 or 5 high, and whoever was on the bottom had to get in first, because whenever the canvas above them sagged down from the weight of the person above them, there was almost no room to get into there.
You couldn't squeeze in. The racks were that close to each other.
Yeah, you couldn't turn over either. You had to get in or not, either up or down. So it was pretty tight.
And the Pacific Ocean, it turns out, is pretty big. How long did it take you to cross it?
We left the port of Tacoma, and it took 21 days to get across.
Oh,
we went as basically a what you would see in World War II as a convoy. I mean, we had aircraft carriers, we had destroyers, the whole shooting match, and it was like whenever we landed at a little town called Tuiwa, it was like a scene from the Second World War where you see the guys coming in on the LSTs. Well, we had our helmet, rucksack, rifle, an AWOL bag, and a duffel bag, and no ammunition. And we landed. They dropped the ramp, and everybody just stood there because nobody knew what the heck was going on, and we weren't sure whether we wanted to get off of there or not. And,
Yeah.
And the guy who was running the LST said, "Okay, ladies, get off my boat." So we got off, and here we look up the beach, and they're unloading Honda motorcycles, little 250s or something. And there's a bus sitting there waiting for us, and had screens over the windows, and we were wondering why at first, and then we realized that that was so nobody could throw a grenade through the window.
And is that kind of like when you realize, okay, this is the real deal?
It got a little more serious then.
Got a little more serious.
Yep.
I want to share this this great recording you have. Oh, and this is you were what, a mortar crew?
Yes, I was actually the second gunner on a mortar platoon in our squad, and as it turned out, that our the gunner and our squad leader wound up staying in the rear area for some reason or another a little bit longer than the rest of us. So I assumed the role of the gunner and the squad leader. So it was like you moved up a position or so.
And that looks like a large mortar. What, 81 millimeter?
No, that's a 4.2 inch.
4.2 inch.
And it has a maximum range of about 5 to 6 miles, actually. So we were, I think at the time, we were told that they were once the gun was settled in the ground and it wouldn't move anymore, we were the second most accurate gun to the Navy ships guns.
Huh.
They were very accurate.
Yeah, you could put,
and
you can put it in a bucket.
We had the 4.2 inch and also the 81 millimeter.
Jeff Witherall, I think I heard your voice. Did you say you could put it in a bucket?
When like you said, when you get the 4.2 settled, it could put it in a bucket. It's basically the 105 howitzer.
Yeah.
Round, and then, but it's very accurate. The 4.2 is very accurate.
The rounds weigh about 52 pounds a piece in the cardboard container that they came in, and whenever they would sling load a load of ammo in, they wouldn't be able to drop it where we needed it, so they would drop it on the perimeter of the camp, the position. And we used to carry 2 rounds on our shoulders, and then somebody would load 3 rounds going across, 2 on that, and 1 on that. So it was almost over 400 pounds, and we would carry those to our gun pits, and then somebody would offload us, or we would just drop them off the back of our shoulders. But we would do that on a regular basis as far as getting the ammo where we needed them to be.
And when you say sling load, that I'm imagining a helicopter, maybe a Chinook, dropping down
either a Huey or a Chinook. Yeah.
Oh my! So you were pack mules carrying these things to your pit here, to your battery area. And so, would you move around the countryside? Just that's one more question I have. You weren't in one place; you would move.
Oh no, we moved a lot, and every time we moved, we would have to empty all those sandbags, take them with us. All the trees that we cut down for the bunker roofs, they were double layers of sandbags on that too, because the higher ups came down with an edict saying you couldn't sleep above ground. You had to sleep below ground level. So that hole that you see in that gun pit, that's where we slept down in there.
Right there. That's where you slept.
And the hole had to be big enough for 5 or 6 guys to be in. So we did a lot of digging and a lot of chopping of trees.
A lot of digging and chopping of trees and hauling of ammunition and filling of sandbags.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You couldn't leave the sandbags behind because the enemy would use them. So we had to take them with us. And every time you see a seam in between the sandbags, you had to watch whenever you were emptying them out because there could be scorpions in between them. So
Hey, I'm beginning to think this was not like a really fun or pleasant year in Vietnam.
I've had better years.
Rick, I'm just little details like this just interest me so much because I just think back to before I started working with veterans, I had an image of what serving in the Army and the infantry was like. And, you're carrying a rifle, you're firing, you're encountering danger. But I never really thought about just the discomfort of every day that you're filling sandbags, you're emptying sandbags, you're hauling things around. Michael, what were you going to say? Why don't you unmute yourself there?
Yes, you were talking earlier about the prefix to your serial numbers.
Yes.
About the U.S., and the RAs.
Yes.
U.S. were the draftees, the RAs were regular Army, O's were officers, and NG was National Guard, and ER was enlisted reservist. When I first went in, I went in as an enlisted reservist. When I went back in later, as in about 67, 68, they had changed the system and were using only the Social Security number as our military number at that point. Just thought I'd add that. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. And now they use something completely different, from my understanding, right? Thank you for that. All right. I'm going to play the first recording here of you. This is you sent this home, I think, to your parents, and I'm sharing my sound, so you should be able to hear this.
Speaking from, as you know, I'm in Vietnam now. Today's April 29th. What is it, 28th? 28th. About 10 o'clock at night. Talk about having a heck of a time thinking of stuff to say. Night, line companies were out, and they had a few casualties, and we had to fire some elimination for them, but yeah, we only fired about 100 rounds of illumination in the past couple days. That was an 81 firing just now. That's another one. In a couple minutes, you'll be able to hear them landing. Wait a minute. Well, you might see. I woke up, my buddy and I, we went down to a little creek and we washed our clothes. That was around 1 o'clock, wasn't it, Dave? Yeah, around 1 o'clock. Then we wore our clothes back up. We're wet, and they dry out in about 15 minutes, I guess. Pretty fast. What else? What else happened today? Oh yeah, we had delicious chow tonight. A slab of ham about 4 inches wide and about 3 inches long. And yesterday we had steak, mashed potatoes. What did we have? Was it peas or corn or beans? Green beans. Yeah, green beans.
I love that. That is so giving your parents just like a slice of life. A lot of food that I would imagine that 81 millimeter shell was a bit of a shock for your parents to hear.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there were other tapes that I don't know became missing or lost, and it was more like a firefight going on because you could hear the machine guns on the perimeter going off and howitzers going off and 81 millimeters and 4.2 inches going off. And I think that one was abandoned somewhere along the way because it rattled her so much, my parents so much.
Yeah, I would imagine. And I love the little detail about your washing your clothes in the creek.
Yeah.
And Rick.
Well, that was the best way you could do it. You couldn't rely on the rain because if it wasn't monsoon season, you weren't going to get any rain for a while. And other than that, that was the only way to get clean. And we had the same uniforms and boots for the longest time until we started getting our sundry packages, which evidently included changes of uniforms every once in a while. It was a long time before we even got the tiger stripe uniforms. We didn't have those for a long time either.
So I hope people who are listening or watching get the sense of your daily life in Vietnam. You're chopping wood, you're filling sandbags, you're digging holes, you're hauling ammunition around. You don't have, sounds like soap or toothpaste, and you don't have changes of clothes, and you're washing your clothes in some muddy creek somewhere. Yep. You must have looked and smelled pretty bad.
Yeah. It was nice.
Ryan, all you said, I always felt bad here for mortarmen.
What's that?
I'm reading what you put in the chat here on the Zoom side, Ryan.
Yeah. No, I was so when I went to training, it was a combination of 11 Bravos and 11 Charlies, and the Bravos were the infantrymen and the Charlies were the mortarmen. And when I got to my unit, we had mortarmen as well, and I just always felt bad. Like, I have an E-tool, right? A little expandable shovel, and I just have to dig a little, maybe at most a foot into the ground, pile some dirt up in front of me, and there we go. There's my fighting position. And those mortarmen, man, they're back there. They got to get out pickaxes and shovels, and they're just digging and digging and digging just to put that mortar tube in. And I was like, well, we're moving tomorrow, so what's the point, right?
Yeah. We had that happen too. We moved into a position, and the very next day after we were done, we worked almost all night building up this position, and the next day they said, okay, tear it down, we're going to move.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you get engineer assets and they'd help out, but most of the time those guys were just, we'd have to go help, which made it even worse. I was like, God, I hope the mortar section gets moved out of my platoon. That would be great.
Yeah. Jim Roberts and then Jeff Witherell.
No, you haven't mentioned the guy who had to hump the 81 millimeter base plate.
Oh yeah, they were heavy.
Carry that stuff through the boonies. That's it's bad enough carrying a rucksack.
Yeah, Jeff Witherell.
I was going to say that the one thing they did to help out the mortar teams. I had a mortar platoon, a weapons platoon at the 82nd. We had mules. They were little flatbed carriers that had like 2-pound pressure tires, and you could pile all your stuff on these things and all your guys. And you had 3 or 4 of these things for the mortars. We had 3 mortar crews in my platoon, and they had a pretty nice. Like the rest of us are humping it. These guys are riding on these little mules that had what they lawnmower engines basically, and they could go over hill and dale, and you could go over your foot with the 2-pound tire. They just keep on rolling those things, and they just pile all their gear and everything on these little flatbeds.
What year was that?
That was 70 to 72. Yeah.
We didn't have anything like that.
Yeah.
We had shoe power and leg power, and occasionally we had a helicopter that took us from one place to another. But
yeah, you're right. Well, like I say, when we jumped, the guy that had to jump the base plates and that stuff, they had to jump with that crap, and I'll tell you, that was tough. I mean,
yeah,
that was hard. And then finally the mules would come in, on a heavier jump or a heavier drop. They'd drop the vehicles and stuff. But the guys that had to carry the base plates and the tubes.
Well, the 4.2 inch was even heavier.
Yeah.
The barrel I think was 150 pounds.
Oh, Jim Roberts.
I remember being told in training that the 4.2 was considered portable from the back of the truck to the ground.
I was going to say, if they started introducing those mules, those the vehicle for you to ride in, the Army must have opened that suggestion box that I'm sure they had in Vietnam, where you write a little suggestion how to make my job, how to improve my job. Oh my gosh, this is so enlightening. It doesn't sound like a very romantic, Oh my gosh!
I think this is great fodder. No pun intended. Great fodder for Thursday night.
tomorrow night. Ryan, who's my normal co-host for the Scuttlebutt, is joining me tomorrow night, and we're going to talk tech, military tech. So the newest technology coming out, but we're also going to take a look back at some of the old tech that was around World War II, Vietnam, and just chat about all the tech that has come out in the military that you've been able to use, brand new.
That'd be great. That's tomorrow night at 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Roberts.
You mentioned earlier about the SP packs. If my memory serves me correctly, the SP pack was supposed to be enough stuff for one man for 100 days or 100 men for 1 day.
Yeah.
So if you had a 5-man unit, you should get one every 20 days. The SP pack had writing material, pencils, paper, soap, toothpaste, bootlaces. The bootlaces were probably, for me, the most important thing we got because they were incredibly strong. It's also where we got the candy we gave the kids. And so the other thing, you got 10 cartons of cigarettes with 10 packs of cigarettes, and they would have everything like what the people wanted from Winston's to what smokers hated were the Chesterfields. And every now and then you'd get a carton which was retaped, and someone in the rear area had opened the carton and taken out all the good stuff and put in 10 cartons of Chesterfields. So the problem was, fortunately, I didn't smoke, but the problem was how they divvied up the smokers divvied up things. But they never came in at that rate. I mean, we had 9 men co-located. We should have gotten one about every 11 days. If we got one once a month, we were lucky, but we were glad to get them. That's where the toothpaste, soap, and all of that sort of toiletry stuff came in, razor blades and razors and things like that.
That was called an SP pack?
Sundry pack. Or
Sundry pack.
Boy, I'm going to try and find one of those if I could. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be fun to find them on eBay or something like that? That's what I should have sent out for the welcome home boxes. Send you all bootlaces and toothpaste and toilet paper.
What's a welcome home box?
That's right. All right. Now, here is tape number 2. This is to your friend Michael, who was back home in the National Guard or the Reserve, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you might chide him for that in this one. I'm not sure. Let's play it.
My name is Fletch. They call me Mac. Because of my last name. We made up. Well, we all got blasted one night, and made up a couple tapes for you. And I guess Rick never got the courage to send them. They were kind of gross, I guess. But I just got my orders to ETS. Understand?
Estimated time of separation.
Yeah.
Me too.
Or ending time in service. Anyway, here's Rick. Nice talking to you.
That was Fletch. He doesn't actually have a whole lot to say whenever he isn't drunk.
Where's my beer?
I don't know where your beer is. That's all he does is drink beer these days. Since we're so short, we don't actually do a whole lot of anything else but drink beer and swear and talk about the good days coming, stuff like that. Yeah, well, we don't think about the bad days because we just don't consider them anymore. Since they're gone, we just leave them behind. Isn't that right, Steve?
That's right.
Steve is over there eating a piece of roast beef right now. We had a delicious meal tonight for a change. Roast beef, diced potatoes with gravy, which the gravy was good too. And what else did we have? Oh, salad, carrots. Carrots weren't too good. And iced tea with no ice.
No sugar. No tea.
No tea.
No
Well,
sugar. Well, that stuff was terrible.
it was poor excuse for iced tea. Put it mildly. But it wasn't bad. It was wet anyhow. What else? Oh yeah, we have hot gun tonight. We stay up half the night. Well, part of our crew stays up one half the night, and the other guys stay up the other half of the night firing H&Is. And No, they comes on. It comes on whenever you talk. So it's had to meet. Anyhow, Fletch and I have the first half the night, so that ain't too bad.
Boy, that helicopter sound in the background is just like the iconic sound of the Vietnam War for me. H&I, what was H&I?
Harassing and interdiction fire.
Okay. So you're just harassing the enemy.
Yeah. It wasn't a set mission to fire for anybody's protection or anything. It was just you moved the gun in different positions and you fired so that they know you were still awake.
And so when are you considered short? When you have what, a month left, maybe 4 weeks? When do you become short?
Yeah.
Jim, you said 3? 2 weeks. Okay. And when you become short, how does your life change? You're a little bit more careful?
Probably. Yeah. Yeah. You want to keep your head down a little lower.
Yeah. I see Bob Miswell laughing. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And then finally, you mentioned you don't think about the bad days. Can you give us an example of like what a bad day was?
Well, a lot of our line companies, they would go out on a normal basis. They would rotate A, B, and C companies. And one company would be back in the camp. We had a battalion size camp that I was usually in because we were a headquarters company with the battalion. And the other line companies would go out and they would patrol and look for trouble, I guess, basically. And occasionally they would find it in a bad way, and they would take some casualties. And
okay,
out of our platoon of 40 men, I think there were, from the time I was there till the time I left, I think there was only 2 of our platoon that got wounded and none were killed.
Oh boy.
After I left and I was writing back to some of the guys that were still there, some of our replacements, they got mortared one night and a round come down right inside the gun pit and killed all the replacements.
Oh my
So
God.
there were probably 3 or 4 guys killed right there. And to be honest, we never got into firefights with our rifles, but we did take incoming mortars, and the next day I was picking pieces of shrapnel out of the outside of the gun pit. So they came pretty close.
Right.
And I was telling Bill one night we were sitting just at 6 o'clock, you were allowed to have a beer or a can of pop, whatever. So we were sitting there talking, and all of a sudden in the distance, you could hear a thump, 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 thump. And I said, that sounds like mortars. And the rounds landed on the other side of the perimeter and away from us. And they adjusted their guns, and they walked their mortar rounds right up alongside our gun pits. If they would have been over another 40 yards or so, they would have hit all of our 81s and 40.2 inch mortars, and they would have probably done a lot of damage. So, that was what you were faced with. And our guns were actually on the perimeter too. So we were not only shooting the mortars, but we were a perimeter guard too,
right,
for part of the outside perimeter.
Right. Okay, so that was an example of a bad day. Here's another tape, and this is about your R&R in Japan. R&R was what, 7 days? 7 days?
Probably somewhere around there. I don't remember.
Okay. You don't remember. You'll see why he doesn't remember.
Weed. He drank. That's what he drank all the time, was beer.
Oh.
And this other fella, Dave, he drank screwdrivers, and I drank 7 and 7. And we put away quite a bit, but you don't have to worry. I'm not turning into an alcoholic. Got organized, got some civilian clothes, It was funny wearing them again. And civilian shoes after wearing these combat boots for so long. He felt like he didn't have anything on just about. And let's see, well, we went to the cafeteria they had there and got some good food to eat for a change. Well, that's one thing I can say. We really ate good while we were there. Well, I did anyhow.
So you don't remember that much about the trip to Japan?
It's vague. I know we as Americans, I left a very bad representation of Americans in Japan. We were probably inebriated most of the time, and it was a case of whether I was going to make it back or not. So it was like do what you want to do and have a good time, and let the chips fall where they may. I went over with two other fellows from our platoon, and we almost missed the plane coming back to Vietnam because we were still all waxed, and we took the clothes that we bought for that week. I only bought one change of clothes, and whenever I got back into my uniform, I took all those clothes, shoes, socks, underwear, pants, shirt, and threw them in the garbage. And I figured, well, I may not ever need those again. So they were just pitched, and got in the uniform and got back on the plane and went back to Vietnam.
There's one more tape I want to share, and I'm sad that Larry Woods left. He's an Air Force veteran. And because this is you commenting on the Air Force, and I had to include this because I just thought it was so funny for an Army observation about the Air Force. Here we go.
It was really something, the way the Air Force is set up. I was surprised. They're not like the Army at all. They, I don't know, they seem so organized as the Army is filed up.
The Air Force seems organized. I like that. Harry Miller. Why don't you unmute Harry?
I got tickled what this fellow was just saying about the Air Force. When I changed over, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. It was so much better than the Army. I loved it. Everything was different and better. I've got to say it was better, much better. Even the food was great. In fact, my first meal on an Air Force base, when I came back from Asia there, they put us at Camp Stoneman, California, and the Air Force was running the mess hall there. And of course, I'm in the Army. And, our time in Korea and Japan, it was pretty horrible, I thought. And when I got back, I walked in this Air Force mess hall, and they had an island of entrees. I thought, entree? What the hell is an entree? At that time, I didn't know what entree was. And I even put some time in France and didn't know what an entree was. But anyway, we had one table for entrees and one for desserts and one for something else, and it was like a kid in a toy shop. So, they can say what they want to about the Air Force, but I'll tell you, having been in both, I guarantee you the Air Force was a hell of a lot better than the Army was. I got to say it.
Oh my gosh, Harry, I got to say, I think
the Army was my first love, but I tell you, when I got in the Air Force, I didn't realize what I was missing.
Todd?
Yes, Dennis.
The saying goes that the Army and Marines sleep under the stars, the Navy navigates by the stars, and the Air Force uses stars to rank their chow halls.
You got that wrong.
Their chow hall.
You got that wrong. It was the Air Force sleeps with the stars.
We had to take care of all those pilots to make sure they would get the bombs on the right target. So that's why we always had good lodging facilities, the good food, and also to take care of those mechanics to fix those aircraft to make sure that our pilots got back safely.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, of course, I wasn't in the flying part of it, thank God. I had no desire to fly. I was strictly in communications in the Air Force, as I was in the Army.
If you weren't with us Monday night, then you probably didn't hear Harry's story about joining the Army at age 15. Now, to be fair on the Army, they did ask him his age. They didn't require any proof. They didn't, they asked him, do you have a birth certificate? He said no. They said, okay. He's 15 years old. He's in the Battle of the Bulge at age 16. Wow. And yeah, he's in the 740th Tank Battalion. Fascinating story. Played a key role. In fact, I think I shared Monday night a wonderful article that essentially argues that the 740th saved the Battle of the Bulge, or at least an important part of it. And I'll try and share it again here this morning. His stories are absolutely stunning. He remembers everything. But I'd like him to talk a little bit, Harry, if you wouldn't mind, about after the war. You served at occupation duty in Germany. What was that like? What was Germany like after the war? Because I just imagine the country being completely demolished.
Well, it was completely demolished. Just about every town was flat. And any town of any size was flat. And as far as the occupation went, we had no trouble with the Germans at all. They expected to have problems before the war ended, but it never happened. We had a few black marketeers, this kind of thing, but we had more trouble with the displaced persons, they call DPs, from the foreign countries that the Germans had brought into Germany for slave labor, of course. And they gave us more problems than the Germans ever did.
Huh.
And the only ones of those people that really gave us the problems were the Poles and the Russians. And
I heard, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of good friends of mine. One was a Polish.
Polish.
I called him out. I shouldn't say that, but we did. We called each other by what they were. Anyway, this one guy was a Pole and the other one was a Russian. And they both were from those countries and they spoke the language, but they were in the Army because they got back to the States early. So anyway, they volunteered to take some DPs back to Russia. And these two guys were hell raisers. They were drinkers and carousers and everything. When they came back, they were very quiet fellows. And I asked them what happened on the trip. They took them by train. They said, well, when they got into Russia, they stopped them at the first train station. And the Russians started taking command of the people, telling them to get off the train, made the Americans stay on the train. And they took all the Russians and put them in a big fenced in area right next to a train station. And they told me that as the train pulled out, they heard massive gunfire. And they could look back from the train and they said that they had mowed down all these people.
Oh,
as far as
wow.
the Russians were concerned, they were Germans because they helped Germany fight the war.
They were
So
traitors.
that was the kind of thing. A lot of them wanted to go back to Russia, of course, because that was their home. And then when they took them back, well, they shot them down like dogs. And it was that's the only real problems we had during the occupation. The other problems was after they stopped the stupid part about no fraternization, which didn't stop us too much. We fraternized even. Depends on where you were. We were in a small town, for instance, and that was great because there was nobody there to keep us from fraternizing. As far as I remember, our battalion commander even had the best looking blonde in town, and he was riding around in his CNR car. You probably don't know what a CNR car is. It was a Dodge, like a 3/4 ton truck, only it just had two seats in it, bench seats, and a convertible top, of course. And he would ride around in that back seat of that CNR car with this blonde, and everybody was just panting after him, But it was nice. Now we had one problem, and that was with black marketing, and we did our share. But the Germans would only buy pell-mell cigarettes. because they were longer than the normal cigarette. And they thought they were getting more for their buck. Well, we sold Pell Mells with no problem, but after in the occupation, when I was in the constabulary, our regimental commander, whose name was Reed, and he was part of the Reed Tobacco Company of Virginia, some relation. He got sick and tired of people selling their cigarettes all the time, so he said, "I'm going to have some good cigarettes sent over here." He had cases of cigarettes, of Pell Mell cigarettes. No, not Pell Mell. Some off brand. I don't remember what it was. Nobody ever heard of it. And of course, we wouldn't buy them because the Germans wouldn't buy them from us. So the heck with them. And he couldn't figure that out. But I guess he wasn't much of a black marketeer, or he would have known what our problem was. But nobody would buy any brand but Pell Mell.
You mentioned the constabulary, and I want to share this picture here because you sent me a great 10-page memoir of your service that just was so perfect. And one thing that it did was it answered questions that I had. I remember seeing pictures of people wearing helmets like this, and people with like horses, and they seemed to be army, but they seemed to be police. And you explained that this was the constabulary. This was kind of like the U.S. created this special unit that would essentially serve as like state police in occupied Germany.
That's right. That's right. And that picture you have there with the helmet liner, we had to wear those all the time. And all of our vehicles were marked the same way with the yellow and blue stripes all the way around them. Instead of a white star, we had that circle C with it.
Yeah, the circle C. And I never quite knew what that was. And you explained it.
Yeah, that was a constabulary. It was formed for the very purpose of replacing the German police, state police. And the MPs took care of the big towns, and we took care of the state, and did a lot of patrol work along the U.S. and Russian borders, zone borders, and had horses to go up into the Bavarian Alps, and had light tanks, M24s. We had a lot of M8 armored cars, and a Jeep. Everybody was either in a Jeep or an armored car, or very few were in trucks. We were all motorized. Mechanized, I should say. Yeah, that's some more. And I don't know who wrote that one, but a good friend of mine was the first chief of staff for the constabulary, and his name, he retired as a brigadier general. He just died a few years ago. His name was Alban Urzik, and a real nice guy. And he had written quite a bit on the constabulary because he was in it at the beginning, and he was a great guy. But General Harmon was the commanding general originally, the first one, and he had been commanding the 2nd Armored Division during World War II, and the 1st Armored for a while too. There's our M8 right there with the stripes on them. That's at, I would say it's probably at Fort Knox.
Yes, exactly where it is, at Fort Knox, at Kentucky. So you were on, it's not an exaggeration to say that you were really on the front lines of this new Cold War that really started to develop really at the end of World War II. You're there in Germany that is partitioned into a British zone, American zone, Soviet zone, and you would patrol that border, the east-west border?
Yes, we did. That was our main job. And besides patrolling through the Alps, looking for wayward Nazis, that's what they use the horses mostly for up in the mountains. But of course, the Cold War actually started May 9th, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, the day after VE Day, you're saying.
That's right, because they started shooting at us. You know, we were at the end of the war. We ended the war with the 8th Infantry Division, but then when we moved down to the American zone, they put us with the 3rd Infantry Division. The 1st, 3rd, and 9th were supposed to stay there for occupation duty. And as it turned out, the 3rd was deactivated same time we were. And so then I went to the 9th, and they were deactivated. The only division left there was the first Infantry Division plus the Constabulary, which has just been formed. So there was not much backup there. And had the Russians wanted to, they could have come across there pretty slick.
Easily. I mean, and I'm sorry to editorialize here as a historian, but I think we forget maybe as a country that the minute that VJ Day happened, the minute the war was over in Europe, and then of course in Japan, the one thing that Americans wanted was to get everybody back home, was to get the boys back home. Yeah. And so Europe was emptied out. I mean, we did not have that many occupation troops in Western Germany or in Europe at all. The Russians had 1 million, 2 million, 5 million. I mean, they kept and stationed a huge army in Eastern Europe, and man, they were poised to take the West at the drop of a hat. Boy, Harry, this is so interesting to me. And another thing that's interesting is you said in your memoir that you were given the job. One of the things that the job that you had was to try and track down this guy, the notorious Nazi Martin Bormann.
Yeah. Well, that was down the 9th Infantry Division then, 39th Regiment. And we were at Bad Tolz, which was the best location, I think, in Germany as far as quarters went. So we got the word that we were to go up into the mountains, the Alps, and find Martin Bormann. So we said, okay, fine. What's he look like? Well, I don't know.
So what do you do? Go up to people. Are you Martin Bormann? Are you Martin Bormann?
And so they said, well, there's no reason for it. It's just our policy. So we went up and we started looking around, and we'd stop Germans and, asking dumb questions like, are you Martin Bormann, which they're not going to admit. Even the Germans didn't know who he was in a lot of cases, because he was pretty smart. There was not many pictures taken of him. And I think maybe he was afraid things might turn the way they did. But he kind of stayed in the background. He was actually Hitler's private secretary, so to speak. He would make sure Hitler got the papers signed and that kind of thing. I suppose he'd hold his hand in some cases to get him signed. But he was a bad one.
He was a bad one.
As it turned out, they finally found his bones in Berlin. When Hitler shot himself, a lot of them took off, and he was one of them that took off. Thought he was going to try to make it somewhere into safety, and he never made it.
That's exactly right. And I think his remains were finally identified decades after the war. I mean, it was probably the 1970s by the time that he was tracked down. But it was assumed that he had probably tried to make it out of the country and didn't. Harry, you are like a one-person history lesson. This is so fascinating to me. And your career, spans through the 1950s into the 1960s. Could you tell us how you got into the Air Force?
Yeah, well, when I came back from Japan, Korea, I was assigned to the Army Security Agency. Well, I didn't know a whole lot about it, and so I just went into it, fat, dumb, and happy. And after I got in it, I spent 6 months getting a clearance, and I was sent back to Germany. And I got there, and they said, "Well, why did they send you here? We don't need you." And I said, "Oh, good, send me home." "Oh no, we can't do that." And I said, "Well, if you don't need me, why not just send me back?" "Oh no, we can't do that." So they said, "Oh, I'm going to send you to the garden spot of Germany." I thought, "Oh yeah, you were Greeks bearing gifts, So they sent me to this little town of Scheyern, Germany, which was about 35 miles north of Munich. And it was just a crossroads is all it was. And we were running radio intercept on the Russians, doing a good job. We were breaking their codes and all kinds of stuff. And but it was a bunch of weirdest people I was ever with. And after having been in a combat unit, it was just impossible to get used to the service troops, really. They had an entirely different attitude. Everything was different. Well, and the Army Security Agency, the way they got their officers, they would go to the different branches, infantry, artillery, whatever, and say, I need 3 officers from you, 2 officers from over here, 4 from there. You know, that's how they'd get their officers. They knew nothing about communications, intercept, nothing. And I found out that they must have been the worst officers that these units had, because they sure were bad for us. So bad that here I am as one of the senior NCOs. I'm trying to keep law and order among the troops. And one morning, the detachment commander, a major, comes to work. He's got a big black eye. So I stopped the captain that I knew pretty well, and I asked him what happened. And he says he got into a fist fight with Lieutenant so-and-so last night. And I says, Captain, how the hell are we supposed to keep law and order among the troops when the commanding officer comes in like a stupid jackass, having gotten into a fight with his own people? And he said, I know. And I thought, oh. So anyway, I volunteered to go back to Korea in armor, because that's what I started with. And they said, oh, no, you can't go. Can't release you. Why not? Well, you're too important. We're too needed too much. I said, wait a minute. I said, nobody is indispensable. You know that. Well, you are because of your security clearance. We're afraid if you got captured, you'd spill the beans. I said, well, okay. So then I applied for infantry. I said, oh, you know, infantry, they always need infantry. And I thought that's the way to get in there. No,
you're probably the first ever to volunteer for the infantry.
Probably, yeah. That's how stupid I was. Well, anyway, I was desperate at that point. So anyway, I told him, I said, well, you know, I've got a hitch coming up, and if I don't get out of this outfit, I'm going to get out of the Army. One way or the other, you got your choice. You're going to lose me one way or the other. Well, sorry, we can't do it. So my hits came to an end. I went back to the States. I went down to the Air Force recruiting office, and I said, here I am. Can you use me? What'd you do in the Army? I told them. They said, we'll take you. I thought, oh, holy mackerel. I didn't even expect that, you know. I said, all right, let's talk about rank now. They said, okay, what was your rank in the Army? I said, well, I got out as a tech sergeant. And they said, well, we'll give that to you too in the Air Force. I said, all right, now let's talk about time and grade. I had 2-year time and grade in the Army. And they said, no, we can't give you that, but we give you what you had. So they did. And I went in, I changed clothes from ODs to blues and never looked back. And I was never sorry.
You are never sorry and never look back. Oh, is that neat? I want to let people ask you questions if they have them.
Sure.
I'm sure people do have questions. I know I have one. I want to show. I'll give a second here. Okay, then I'm going to ask Harry. I'm going to show a map, and this is a map of the constabulary, the United States Constabulary in the occupied zones.
Yeah.
Can you point out where you were? I'm imagining Bavaria is down here, right? You were probably one of these.
Right. You see where it says 42nd? Raise your arrow there a little bit.
Oh, yes, right here.
42nd. That was the one of our battalions. Actually, they call it squadrons in the constabulary. And the 2nd Regiment, which I was in, was just above that, or just in the same town as the 42nd, but it was in a different caserne. Now they would send these patrols out, as you see with these lines going out toward the border there at Czechoslovakia.
Right.
And that was our area. That yellow zone was ours. That whole thing. And the second down there in the bottom, just above Austria, it says 2nd. That was our 2nd battalion, our 2nd squadron.
Okay, right down here.
Yeah.
Oh, and a caserne was a barracks?
Yeah, the caserne was a German army camp, in other words, and they were generally just very good buildings with a big parade ground in the center. It's kind of like a quadrangle with the parade ground in the center. The one I was in Bad Tolz, I told you about, was the 9th Division. that had been the SS officer school, or the OCS for SS. And it was the best barracks, I think, in Europe. I'm getting somebody's.
It's all right, honey. It's all right.
I'm getting somebody's propeller there. Anyway, it was a great concern, and then of course I went back to see it here in December of 2019, and it had been all chopped up. It's the same because they ruined a beautiful concern there. Other concerns they turned into condos and apartment houses, and they've really changed them a lot.
And those we did a World War II battlefield tour with the Veterans Breakfast Club in Europe in 2018, and we stopped at one of those casernes that had been an SS caserne, because that's where one of our travelers had been after, as part of the occupation. That's where his barracks. Boy, were they nice. I mean, they were really nice. In fact, they had been converted to family housing, and there were these, young families in a playground where the parade ground was. And it was so neat to see these young families there, that had been a SS barracks.
We had one like that we visited that I was stationed at. It was in Freising, Germany, and then one in Bad Tolz. And then we had another one down at Fusen by the famous New Chateau, or
the beer.
The famous castle that you see in the pictures.
Ludwig, the King Ludwig.
Fusen.
Yeah.
I was stationed there at that time. We could go in there and sit down on the beds or the chairs or anything else.
Oh my
now you go in there and they've got it all fenced off so that you can't touch it.
Oh, is that neat? Oh, is that neat?
It's a beautiful place. Beautiful place.
And again, I'll invite anybody to make a comment or ask you a question. Harry, thank you for joining us this morning and continuing, finishing a little bit of your story this morning. And I just want to invite you to come anytime you'd like. Would love to have you. You are just a treasure, a living treasure. And I'm grateful that we're able to spend time with you.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate what you're saying. I just, I grew up there. Actually, I guess I came to life really when I got to Europe, and that was my favorite place. I still love to go back.
I mean, when you say you grew up there, you're not kidding. 15 years old, 16 years old. Jeez, it's part of that. I think my fascination with your story is I think back to when I was 16. Oh my gosh. No, I would not have been.
Yeah, a good friend of mine told me, he said, when I was 16, he said, if I got a paper cut, he said, I'd practically cry.
That's right.
I told him, I said, well, if I got a paper cut, I would cry.
Right. Jim Roberts. Here, Jim, why don't you unmute yourself, Jim?
How old were you when you made tech sergeant? You went in so young. How old were you when you made your tech sergeant rank?
How old was I when I first went?
When you made rank, tech sergeant.
Oh, 19, I think. No. Yeah, 18.
Well, it was wartime.
Oh, that was.
When I think back, I can't even believe it. Well, one thing good, you see, when they were sending a lot of guys back that, had been over there during the war, and they had points to go back. So that opened up a lot of the positions for the people that came in later. And I was one of them. So that helped, because as these guys left, these jobs were wide open. And if you did your work and you got along, you got promoted. Then, of course, when Korea started, why, guys, the guys I went with in November of '48, when I went to Japan, I went over with 7 first 3 graders, which were either staff tech or master at that time. And we had something like 700 raw recruits. Well, every one of those NCOs that I went over with was killed in Korea. But because of my getting that good deal there, why I missed getting killed, which disturbed me terribly.
can imagine.
And it was kind of sad because, you know, there were so many good people that were killed. I mean, to me, I still go to Europe, and when I go to these military cemeteries, I look out at these crosses, and I don't see crosses. I see men standing there, and I think that every time, especially nowadays, when I see these jackasses out in the streets, burning buildings, throwing rocks, trying to kill the police, I think about these poor bastards over there laying under that ground. They never asked for anything, and these clowns are asking for everything and have not contributed a darn thing. I think that's what disturbs me more than anything. And, you know, the older you get, you feel less and less able to do anything about it.
Yeah.
But of course, you're just standing around waiting for your time to come. There's only 5 of us left that we know of from my outfit. And 2 of us are still able to get around. I'm not too sure about the one because he's 97 now, I think. And the rest of them are pretty much down and out. So I just wait for word to hear about them going. I know it's going to be just any day. So, you know, that's where I stand with all this stuff.
Harry, I love what you say because, you know, when somebody like me looks out at a cemetery, we do see the headstones, we see the crosses, but we don't always see the people, you know, the people that they represent. And I think it's a real challenge for people like me to remember that on Memorial Day, we're remembering people, actual flesh and blood people with plans and, you know, Deborah and then Bob.
No, I only want to piggyback on that and say that that was really a poignant thought that hit me too when you said that I don't see crosses, I see men standing there. And then you said that, of course, the older I get, I can't really do anything. And my thought was, but right there, that's what you said hit me, and I believe it would hit others. And so, you know, when you comment like that, if that could only be put out there, you know, say it as loud as you can from the rooftops, as much as you can every time you have an opportunity, because that hits home with people. And that's what I wanted to say as well.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Bob Mizwa.
A question for Harry. My dad spent 2.5 years in a German POW camp, and at the end of World War II, the Russians were pushing westward, so the Germans forced them to march westward. And I was just wondering, did you have any encounters with any of the prisoners of war that were, you know, coming westward from the German POW camps?
I didn't get any of those because when the war ended, we were up on the Baltic. We were sent up to go to assist the British. We didn't know why, but we crossed the Elbe River, which we weren't supposed to do, but were ordered to do it. So we went north up the Elbe and captured a lot of Germans. And when we got up to right on the Baltic, the war ended. And so all these guys that were released, they were brought back from other locations from where we were. We were up too far up north to see any of those. We did drop off the 82nd Airborne at the town of Ludwigslust on the way up. And they freed the concentration camp there at Woblin. And we were given the opportunity to go there. Some of us were given the opportunity to go see it, but I didn't get the chance to do that. But later on, I got to go to another concentration camp in Dachau. But as far as the POWs, I never did run into them then. But later on, I had several buddies that had been in POW camps. One had been at Limburg, where we were stationed at the end when we broke up. And another one had been at Dresden. And these guys, and one had been in Munich filling up the train tracks and fixing up the train tracks in the Bahnhof there. And these guys had some great stories to tell. And they're funny. Some of them are just funny as a devil. How they kept their sense of humor, I don't know. This one guy, when I was in the constabulary, we had to take 100-mile hikes every year. And I remember one night we were walking on part of this hike, and we came through this little village, and all the windows were shut and the lights were out. And he came from Germany. When he was 12 years old, he came to the States. So they drafted him, and he was walking through this little town. And in German, he says, Achtung, Achtung. And he says, everybody leave, the Russians are coming. The lights came on, all these places, the shutters opened up, heads stuck out, and so they yelled out, where are they? And he said, I'm just kidding you. just to make them mad, I think. But another guy had been in 101st at Bastogne, and he got captured and taken back to Dresden. And he was in that famous, what was it? The
Slaughterhouse.
Slaughterhouse 5, yeah.
Slaughterhouse 5.
Yeah. Anyway, that's where he was. And when they bombed Dresden, they made all of them go out and pick up bodies and put them up on a pyre so they could burn them. And he said, boy, the people were throwing stuff at him and kicking them and slapping them and everything else. And he was still a fun guy, but he said, mighty tough.
Yeah. We had one who attended our events, 82nd Airborne, Norm Waldman, who was at Slaughterhouse 5, also in Dresden, and told same exact story. Harry, thank you so much for joining us. And Rick Pahler, thank you for sharing those stories with the tapes. I wanted to say hello again to Rendell Bergman, who has written some wonderful poems that I shared one here in our chat. Those of you who want to open it up, Ren, I don't know if you have, if you want to say anything about the poem or even recite it, we can do that another time if you'd like. It's a poem that was sent to me by a Vietnam vet for Vietnam Veterans Day. Oops, here, I think I'm sharing the wrong thing. And I found it so moving and so expressing perfectly what I've heard from other Vietnam veterans here. It's called The Unwelcomed.
I'd be happy to read it.
Please do.
The Unwelcomed, Vietnam veterans. How were they welcomed? What kudos were theirs? Where was their honor? The time long ago, the place here at home. Brash cries of killers rang from angry crowds, reviled and assaulted from those protected. Rivers of rancor filled with spit and screams. Veterans came home from jungles of war to streets of sorrow and shadows of grief. Can you scroll that up? Thanks. 58,220. Too many to lose. Too many gave their lives as pawns in games of war. Warriors were shackled by ploys of politicians, taking precious life upon bloody altars. Where was their tribute to those giving all? Where was the honor to vets who yet breathed? The deed has been done, blood is on their hands. Long years have gone by, not sore memories. Time has squelched insults. Memorials arise, the dead they honor. What of those who live? It was when in our youth we held to our oaths to be her defense, to be her support. Now let our nation rise, remember those who served, to honor, thank, and bless, to welcome them back home.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ren. That should have been read for our Vietnam Veterans Day event. That's
Yeah. That should be. That's great. That's a great one.
That
He
is
did a
great.
good job. I
Thank you.
dabbled in poetry myself, and he did a great job.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks for having us.
Man, I tell you, what a wonderful way to spend a snowy Wednesday morning with all of you. This is terrific. Thank you again. Join us tomorrow night if you can. Ryan all will be with us, right, Sean?
That's
We'll be
right.
talking about military technology and maybe some of the old technology.
Yeah, we got a bunch lined up, and we definitely are not a one-stop shop for all of it. So more open conversation tomorrow night to chat with everyone about new tech that they used whenever they were in service. So, but we have some fun ones about the new technology, like new VR goggles and things that are coming out that are kind of just mind-boggling.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, so we'll see you all, I hope, tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., the same Zoom link. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. Take care. Thank you.